Hello there. Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars in a Galaxy, watching all the Star Wars we can get our hands on. I'm Eli.
I'm Jacob.
And today we got a very special episode coming on behalf of my co-host over here, Jacob. I'm so glad he came up with this idea. I'm very excited to explore this idea. We're in a weird limbo period with Star Wars in a Galaxy. Let me explain what's going on. We're doing a limbo period. We're doing like a bunch of special episodes now. After this one, and I think one more, I think we'll be on a hiatus for a week or two, I think, while Jacob and I get some stuff sorted out in our own lives. And then we will be back with season 12 and a half of In a Galaxy, which is going to be Tales of the Jedi. And then after that, we're going to be back with season 13 of Star Wars in a Galaxy, which is season 2 of The Bad Batch. We want to delay The Bad Batch as much as we could because we want to have a little distance between that season. Because it released so soon before we analyze it, because we're not a reaction podcast, and no shade to those who are. That's just not who we are and not what we do. And so we decided that we wanted to delay it, but so that's going to be coming probably the majority of this summer is going to be Bad Batch season 2 with In a Galaxy. So
yeah, we just want to give it a little time to land, a little bit of time to marinate before we dive in.
Absolutely. And coupled with the fact that Jacob and I have now both done a review of the entire season, like a retrospective episode on Father Son Galaxy, and I was actually also on one from the Nerd Academy podcast very recently. We also wanted to let those two marinate for a while. And thanks to the crews from both shows for having us on. We really appreciate when anybody invites us on. We're incredibly honored. We never thought we'd get there, honestly.
Yeah, it's pretty surreal every time. But today we have good old-fashioned versus series.
Clone Wars versus series.
Clone Wars versus Star Wars Rebels. So what we're going to do today, something that we used to like to do a lot before our In a Galaxy days, I think. Just what character would win in a fight,
Yeah.
Star
absolutely.
Wars, there's a fighting aspect to it. It's in the name.
And absolutely go and a couple of disclaimers before we get into this. First of all, it will be Clone Wars characters versus Rebels characters, because those are our respective favorite Star Wars TV shows. I will encourage a bunch of things. If you want to see more in-depth analysis, like we're going to be going through these decently quickly, but I think we'll still do some decent analysis on this. If you want some like really in-depth thorough analysis, we recommend checking out Knights of the Republic's Patreon, where they do very in-depth analysis on their versus series. Jared, who's a good friend of mine, is done like he comes from all the same versus series background that we do. And he and his partner in crime, Spencer, they do really great work over there. And second of all, do you know who would really win in every one of these fights, Jacob?
Who?
Whoever the writer wants to win.
I mean, obviously.
I just want to make that
granted.
I just want to make that clear to everybody, because I just want to make sure that our opinions are just that. They're our opinions. We probably will disagree on things, and we're not arguing about anything that's objective. Nothing. Because if one of these characters walked out, like if we had a two characters with a huge power differential, or so we thought, then the one with the lower power, or so we thought, went up in an issue of a comic that came out, say, tomorrow, and absolutely wrecked the combatant of supposedly higher power, then that would affect us. We would not affect it. We would absolutely take that into consideration, not the other way around. We are not beholden to anything other than the source material, and the source material governs all.
Yeah, I think what we're doing here, what the usual hypothetical is when someone says, "Oh, who would win in a fight?" That's not really how it actually goes ever in this story. It's never a 3, 2, 1, go. Two people in a arena, duking it out. However you choose to see it. That's not how it actually goes. So I agree.
Yeah. It's just, I think it's just important to know, because I think sometimes people do take that step and do say, and do have their like minds a little damaged by like the idea of like, oh, I thought X would win over Y, but in this story Y won over X. That can't be possible. Anything's possible.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
anything's possible. Two characters going head to head is not the same thing as whatever the circumstances may be in any given
yeah,
story.
absolutely. So yeah, but these are all characters on one side from Rebels and all characters on the other side from the Clone Wars, and that will take care of eras within themselves. And obviously, because it would be boring, we haven't chosen any two characters that have faced off before in said formats or in said eras. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. We have to keep it a little bit clean that way.
Yeah.
Make it more interesting as well.
Keep it interesting. All right. So Jacob and I are gonna we'll keep picking. We'll do probably 3 or 4 each from our lists, and we'll talk about them. And we'll see how this goes. If we like doing this, if this gets popular, we'll do more of this stuff because I really do like doing this stuff. And I know Jacob, who I thought was the one who liked doing this stuff less, was actually the one to request it. So like,
I love doing this stuff.
yeah, no, I know.
I
I didn't doubt you like doing this stuff. I just thought like this was like a particular nerdy passion of mine for like say like 5 years ago, and I still have that a little bit of that stuff left in me. Yeah.
No, this goes back to the YouTube channel days.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
So yeah, where do we do you want to give us your first one, Eli?
I was gonna have you go first to go.
Oh, all right.
Go with one of your spectacular battles.
With pleasure. So I wrote up more than we can do. So this is a tough choice about which ones I want to include, but I want to start off with one that I think could be pretty interesting, and that is, who would win in a fight, Sabine Wren or Captain Rex?
Ah, yes. So this is one of our few non-Force user ones, which I think always makes it a little tougher to call for me because we're not necessarily judging them by the same metrics as much, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. Yeah. I was figuring how we'd do this, and tell me if you have any other ideas, but like I was thinking we'd go over like the positives, like what each character has in their corner, what advantages they have.
Yeah, what they
bring to the table.
What they bring to the table, what are their drawbacks?
Yeah, I was gonna say strengths, weaknesses, and then
how would they match up?
And how would the battle go and all that kind of stuff.
Regardless of like how powerful or how skilled or how experienced you think one character or another is, matchups do exist. Like just because one character has vastly more experience, the matchup does make for unique situations.
Yeah. So when are you thinking of Rex from, and when are you thinking of like specifically from in TCW and Sabine specifically in Rebels? Because it matters.
So I think for the sake of this, we'll just say kind of around the end of each. So we can say season 4 Sabine.
Season 4 Sabine.
We can say season 7 Rex, I guess.
Season 7 Rex, season 4 Sabine. Now
I think no dark saber.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you literally just read my mind. You literally just read my mind. I'm like, I need to make an important distinction. Does she have the dark saber? Because if she does, this makes it a drastically different fight than if she doesn't.
Yeah, no, I think no dark saber. I think that makes it much more even and in the spirit of the fight. Where you have two non-force using characters. They don't have an energy blade.
No
they got the dual
blade.
pistols. They got the armor. That's kind of why I wanted these two.
Yeah.
To go up against each other.
So season 7, and here's another question for you. And I know that our friends over the Nerd Academy podcast put a lot of stock into this, and I hadn't tend to, but I think it does kind of matter. Let's talk about where this is taking place.
This might be crazy. What about that big square in Coruscant in Mandalorian, because like it's a wide open space. And they've got some tables and some chairs, if people want to throw things around
with the stone.
If people want to throw things around, if people want to duck for cover, they can
go inside buildings,
jump up on the walls.
And
but
obviously it'll
it's
be
not
deserted.
too.
Yeah.
But you can't really. We could say, maybe you can't go out of bounds. Can't just
Yeah.
go flipping
Absolutely.
out of
Yeah.
wherever. I don't know, because it's something where
Yeah.
we want to imagine the
Got it.
characters can use the environment to their advantage without it
Yeah.
becoming about the environment. That's what
Yeah.
I think
Absolutely.
when I think about trying to pit two characters against each other in a hypothetical such as this. That's just me though. Everyone has different ways of
Yeah.
doing it, and that's
No,
perfectly fine. But that's me.
I agree with you. I think that both ends of the extremes, like we obviously don't want the fight to be about the environment, but I also just think putting it in general in like a flat ring is just kind of boring.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think this is a good mix of both then.
Yeah. So I tend to go for that middle ground. Yeah, but so I guess let's go to Rex then. What does Rex have going for him?
So, first off, with Rex, I think at this point he's a professional soldier. He's
Yeah.
one of the elite. He's the leader of the 501st. He's got a ton of experience. He's very seasoned tactically. He's very strong. He's proven that he has great hand-to-hand chops. He's a sharp shot.
He's a sharp
Yeah,
shot,
I
and
think
I would also
he's
say
just a
that
really great clone trooper.
I would also just say that he has learned from maybe not one of the best, like most powerful Jedi in the war, but definitely one of the most tactically genius. Like Anakin Skywalker. I mean, look, does he get himself into a lot of messes? Yes, he
Yes.
does. I'm not gonna deny that. But it's the way that he gets himself out of said messes. It's the way that it's the like he has this like, and again, I'm not saying it always works. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But there have been some crazy strategies that he has used um to snatch victory from what looks like the jaws of a pretty clear defeat. I'm thinking of stuff like when they recovered a cup um in the unknown, or when or their plan for or Anakin's plan that broke the blockade above Ryloth, or trying to think of another example. Oh, frankly, breaking into the Citadel at all is something that had never been done before, period, in its 600-year history, I think, or something like that, 600-year history. And Anakin, with Rex alongside him, did it. Yeah, he's extremely experienced. He is not like in a fight against another non-force user, this guy's not going to go down easily.
No, absolutely, absolutely not.
He is incredibly experienced. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, what did Rex himself said it. Experience outranks everything.
Outweighs everything. Yeah.
He has tons of experience. Absolutely tons. He's picked up so much from Obi-Wan, Anakin, Ahsoka, all the experiences that he's been in.
Yeah.
How about Sabine? What does she
I was
bring
gonna
to
go
the
with
table?
weaknesses for Rex next.
Weaknesses for Rex.
Yeah.
I think compared to Sabine, I think his armor is a big weakness. He has the
Armor.
clone
Yeah.
plastic, kind of plasticky armor. Not exactly sure what it is, but
yeah,
it doesn't really. It's not really going to help him. Take a blaster bolt the same way that Sabine's Beskar
yeah.
alloy armor
I will
would.
also say that I will also say a few things. First of all, with Rex's tactical and genius and all that kind of stuff, I do believe that will help him in any situation. Although a part of me does wonder how much of that was based towards like one-on-one fights versus leadership and captain being the captain of a battalion. You know what I mean?
True.
How much that is going to transfer over to a one-on-one fight? I think one of Rex's greatest strengths is that he is a very good leader, but that's not going to help him here because there's no one to lead.
Yeah, I still think that his tactical knowledge and his ability to improvise in the field and perform under pressure still would definitely help him.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not denying that. I just think that
Yeah,
it I think it will help him, but maybe not as much as we were making it out to be earlier.
Yeah, perhaps. Well, should we talk
I'm
about Sabine
skeptical.
now?
Yeah.
So we can talk about how they match up. So
Yeah. Sabine, for me, I guess, or you want to go first with Sabine?
yeah, so I think obviously first off her armor.
Yeah.
It's unclear. I think based on what I remember of Rebels, it's unclear whether her armor, although she certainly has the advantage in terms of armor, what her armor would be able to absorb, although it doesn't have as much coverage as Rex. It's unclear to me, honestly, whether her armor is fully Beskar, whether it's pure Mandalorian steel, the way that Din Djarin's is, for example, because we see Din Djarin,
Yeah.
hunkering down, tanking dozens of blaster bolts and just ping, ping, ping going off him. Sabine, on the other hand, there's a scene in the Siege of Lothal when she shoots 2 shots at Darth Vader. Darth Vader deflects them back. They hit her head, they hit her helmet, and she goes down.
Yeah.
So and obviously she's relatively unharmed. I think she's shaken up. So it's unclear to me exactly how her armor works, especially since you see the plates, flex and stretch with her movement. Some of like the shoulder plates, for example. Now that might just be Rebels stylistically what they choose to do, what the art department and the animators choose to do. So I wouldn't put too much stock into that. But I'm not gonna sit here and talk about Sabine's armor like it's some like it's a get out of jail free card, because I don't think it is, although I do think it is an asset for her.
I think it's absolutely not. I think that I looked it up, and I don't know if you remember this little detail, but this was said, I believe, in the beginning of season 4 of Star Wars Rebels. But that Sabine's armor is 500 years old.
Oh yes, I remember. It was
And
forged and
so,
reforged.
yeah, it has been forged and reforged over and over again, which makes me doubt it. Again, not that it doesn't still have Beskar on it, and not that Beskar is going to be any worse than Beskar is going to be, but I'm kind of imagining her armor in this way, like Din's armor was pre-Chapter 3 of The Mandalorian.
Where it's not,
Because he definitely still had Beskar on there. Maybe she had a little bit more Beskar than he did, but I don't think either of them are 100% or even close to 100% Beskar.
because I'm operating. I now see where I'm running into a problem where I can't remember where I heard this. Was it a third party? Was it a YouTuber? Was it someone else speculating, or was it from a primary source, a piece of Star Wars media? But I do remember. I seem to be. I'm operating under the idea that not all Mandalorian armor is 100% Beskar. Maybe there's Beskar. There's alloys and it's a rare material. Presumably it can be mixed with other materials. Not all the armor is created equal, and that's why we see maybe Mando, kind of upgrading his suit with different pieces. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think that there is stuff. I'm gonna say there's stuff we don't. There's stuff we obviously do not know about Beskar. Um, and Beskar often, and I think we've seen this a lot with the Mandalorian. In the Mandalorian, and we're recording this. I think by the time this releases, chapter 24 of the Mandalorian will be out. But it's not out right now. It's coming out a few days after we record this, so we don't know what's going to happen. And things could change. But if we're looking at chapter 23, the spies, and this is what I was going to say about Beskar and the Mandalorian, is that I feel like Beskar in the Mandalorian is the strength of the plot.
That's fair.
I think Beskar
fair.
is about as strong as the plot needs it to be. And I think that's fine from a storytelling perspective, but for this kind of thing causes us a few problems because, we obviously see Din run into that like we see Din run into the hovel of what used to be the client's like base, like run through dozens of stormtroopers getting shot over and over again in the season finale of season 1 of The Mandalorian. But then we see like Din and Bo-Katan and Paz and all of the Mandalorians, including Axe Woves, Koska Reeves, all those people, gun down those Beskar dark troopers, Beskar armored dark troopers with their own blasters, which I'm sure are better than the Stormtrooper C11s from the Imperial Remnant in season 1, but like how much better? And it's still Beskar. Like, but they gunned them down pretty easily, is my point. Like, it's more challenging than usual, but like they finished off that first horde of Beskar armor stormtroopers in a good 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like it's more challenging than normal, but it is by no means an actual challenge. So that's two very, very different strengths of Beskar. So yeah, I'm just wondering how much of it is Beskar, and I think that determines it. But let's stop talking about the armor. Let's talk about Sabine, the fighter, because I think she's a very interesting fighter. I think I think she has a very, very good knowledge of everything technical. I think of the Ghost crew, I think she is the most technologically inclined.
Absolutely. She's a born tinkerer. She was creating crazy advanced, never before seen weapons of war when she was what, 15, 16?
Yeah.
Like
she's a technological genius. And I also think that her ingenuity also transfers over to her combat sensibilities, because even for a Mandalorian, and Mandalorians are known to be very, very like individualistic, unorthodox fighters, but even for a Mandalorian, I think Sabine is very very unique and ingenuitive in the way she fights. Things like in Imperial Super Commandos, where she blasts the feedback frequency to the Super Commandos to disrupt their feed, or how she defeats the battle droids in Ghost of Geonosis with, I think, Rex underground at that point, actually. Or things like I was gonna say The Last Battle, but she was not in that episode. But yeah, I think she's her combat senses are extremely well rounded, and I think that's and I think that is a big plus for her. Minuses for Sabine, for me, are a little less clear. Like, it's not that I don't think she has any weaknesses. She does. I'm just trying to figure out how I would identify them.
I think maybe it might be more useful to talk now about their strengths and weaknesses in comparison to one another, because that's what this is all about, right? So for example, while this isn't necessarily a drawback on its own or a glaring one, when we look at like we can think about I don't know, I guess in the interest of time, I kind of want to get on to like figuring out, like hashing out who do we think would take this. I think obviously this fight would start at range.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, I want to get some stuff out of the way. I think Rex has the advantage when it comes to experience.
Yes, Rex has the advantage when it comes to experience.
I think Sabine has the advantage when it comes to technical aspects.
I don't know. I think Rex, in terms of maybe technology, maybe certain improvisations, absolutely. But I think Rex, equally,
I'm not saying Rex is a slouch by any means, but I think that Sabine has the advantage technically, in that technologically in that scale, and I also think that Sabine, through her time, and this is just a product of the time she trained to fight. But I also think, and who knows how much this matters, I think Sabine has a advantage in mental fortitude.
Sabine,
Yeah, Sabine.
really? Why?
Yeah.
Why do you think?
Here's the thing,
Why do
and,
you think so?
I don't think like
Because
mentally as a whole, but I think in terms of like actual like willpower and like ability to shrug off pain and stuff like that, Rex was fighting in a time where the clones under his command were mostly winning. They were
that's not
mostly
true at
winning.
all. If we look at
At
if we
least the
look
fights
at
that Rex
what
was in, they
happened
were
throughout the
mostly
Clone
winning.
Wars, that's I
At
don't
least the
think
fights
that's
that
true. If we look at if we if we look at the stories that the Clone Wars is telling, I don't necessarily think that we can say that for sure.
I'm not saying
But
that the
if
clones in general were
what's
mostly
your argument?
winning.
Okay, I'll hear you out. What are you trying to say? What are you trying to say?
Rex being at the behest of Anakin Skywalker, who was one of the most successful generals in the war, was mostly winning. And I'm not saying that that means he was all the time winning. There were notable times where he was, but Rex. Think about all the times that Rex got captured in the Clone Wars. It wasn't that many times. Um, Sabine was like Sabine won a lot of the time on her missions, but I think there was a less of a sense for Sabine and the Ghost Crew that winning was inevitable or that winning was certain to happen because they were the underdogs.
I think the
Uh,
clones were almost even in the battles they won. If you look at the Clone Wars, the way they were telling the story, the clones were almost always the underdogs in these
maybe in
stories.
terms of
Eli, take that into
numerical,
consideration.
maybe in terms of
Not just in terms of numerical. I'm talking about the plots. Go back, look at the plots of the Clone Wars. I think you'll see that a lot of them, the clones are clearly portrayed as the underdogs most of the time. You know, they have to their backs are more often than not against the wall, and they have to figure out, you know, how to prevail against all odds.
yeah. And I don't think Rex is weak by any stretch of the imagination. I don't. But I think that Sabine has had more of the idea of coming from that underdog mentality. And I think that, though I do think in terms of mental aspects, I do think Rex has a bit of an advantage with focus. I think Rex has, I think Rex has, I think Sabine has an advantage on like willpower and like, pushing through it. But I think Rex has a clear advantage with focus because I think Sabine has often gotten lost in the craziness of the battle. And I'm not saying this is as just specifically shading Sabine. This is a hard thing to maintain, and many people who are stronger fighters than Sabine have had difficulty maintaining this. But it's a really close fight, I think.
Yeah, I think both Rex and Sabine are savvy and capable enough to not get taken out at range. I
Yeah,
think
I
about, you
think
know,
it will.
they can use cover. Sabine's very agile, Rex is very tactically savvy. I think
Yeah.
it's to me it's pretty clearly going to come down to hand. I think
Oh, for me, I
it's
think
gonna
it's
come
gonna.
down to some type of,
Yeah, maybe
you know,
hand to
hand
hand,
to
or
hand
maybe some sort of like,
fisticuffs.
maybe hand to hand, or for me, I think it would come down to some sort of like. I feel like it would be a cat and mouse game between the two of them, and I feel like it would just take one moment of one of them temporarily slipping up in one minor way, and the other one would seize the advantage. And I think I know, in my opinion, who would do that. But
Who do you okay?
go ahead.
Okay.
Who do you think who would take it?
This is difficult, but I'm gonna go with Rex for this one. His I think his experience and the tactical knowledge and ability that he demonstrated through 7 long seasons of the Clone Wars, I think give him an edge. And then, you know, if it comes to, you know, trading blows, close range, I think obviously Sabine is no slouch. You know, we see
Oh no,
her,
absolutely not.
you know, we see her beat the absolute bejesus out of who knows how many stormtroopers in Rebels. However, I just think that Rex, you know, at his peak. He's a professional soldier, and Sabine, she is a teenager at the end of the day. So I think Rex's advantage in strength, his advantage in strength and conditioning alone, I think, combined with his experience, would take the edge in hand to hand once it gets that close. So I'm going with Rex.
Yeah, I actually was inclined to go with Rex as well. I'm going with Rex as well, just because I think that his. I think also this is another thing that I didn't consider, but is also true. I think the variety of situations that Rex has been is greater than the variety of situations
absolutely.
Sabine has been in, and I think he knows just a bit better how to adapt to situations when they're either A, going his way, or B, very rarely not going his way. But I think that I think it's going to be very close, and I think there are definitely situations where Sabine takes it. But I
Yeah,
think that
absolutely.
for me it comes down to like there are just moments where Rex through Anakin's teachings and through Ahsoka's teachings really has managed, and of course through his own ingenuity, have managed to snatch victory from the jaws of what inevitably seems like defeat. I think the thing that really seals it for Rex for me here is rookies. If you look at that entire episode,
Yeah, rookies.
is basically like obviously Heavy, Echo, and Five were huge parts of that episode succeeding, but Rex was a really important asset to like that was when it became clear that not only might they be able to escape, they also might be able to win when Rex came in with Cody, obviously, but yeah, with Echo and Heavy and Fives, it was clear that they were going to be able to survive, but with Rex, they were going to be able to win. So yeah, I would go with Rex very narrowly here. This is not easy at all. But yeah, that's what I'm going with.
All right.
All
Who do
right.
you have? All right. Who's your first matchup?
This is a fun one. From the
All
Clone
right.
Wars, we're gonna go with we're going endish. So yeah, we'll do season 6, season 7-ish. Ki-Adi-Mundi.
Ki-Adi-Mundi. Okay, season 7
Ki-Adi-Mundi.
Ki-Adi-Mundi. All right.
Versus maybe in my opinion, I think the most underrated Inquisitor of all time. The Eighth Brother.
Okay. Okay.
Ki-Adi versus the Eighth Brother. Now, here's the thing. It's going to be interesting with both of them because we have very little information about both of them. If we're looking about actual battle experience in like TCW standards and Rebel standards, we have Malachor for Eighth Brother, and we have Geonosis, at least the first half of that arc, for Mundi, and that's really it.
Neither of those were particularly good showings.
No, but they weren't awful, and I think that Eighth Brother gets a bad rap too. But we'll get into that. We'll go to Ki-Adi-Mundi.
All right. I don't know a ton about Ki-Adi-Mundi. What is it? What is his form?
His form is Form 4. He uses a Taru. He uses the lightsaber form of a Taru.
Okay.
Which I think for him is going to be less of the somersaults, because I think he is generally an older man. I don't know what actually. Do we have a canon age for Mundi? I don't think we do. No, we don't.
I'm looking on Wikipedia. No,
we
don't know when he was born.
Let's look at the Legends section. Let's look at the Legends tab so we have an idea of how old he's supposed to be. When he dies, he's in his 70s. We know
at the very least at the time of Order 66.
Yeah. In Legends, he was in his 70s. And of course they've changed changes around in canon. But I'm gonna assume roughly the same age, maybe a bit younger. So I'm gonna go with late 60s, early 70s. He was 74 in Legends when he died. I'm gonna assume anywhere from like in between 65 and 75. Somewhere in that ballpark. And he's very experienced, obviously, in Form 4.
Yes.
Yeah,
how about the fifth?
Oh wait, actually, shit. Never mind, I forgot. He uses a bit of Form 4. He uses a bit of form 2 as well.
Yeah, I thought.
He
Okay.
uses a bit of Ataru, a bit of Makashi. I remember this because you can also switch his forms in Galaxy of Heroes. That's part of his kit. They made that decent part of his kit, which is switching forms between Makashi and Akashi and Ataru. Let's look at I want to look at his powers and abilities in Legends section on Wikipedia just to see. Yeah, it says it also says in Legends that he's a master of Form 3, but I'm not so sure about that one.
So we know he can do a little bit of a few forms.
Yeah, he is very proficient with a lightsaber, and I think that's going to be one of his greatest advantages in this fight. Is that his skill with the lightsaber is extremely prodigious.
Yes.
The one thing that's hard about this is that, of course, his only battlefield experience that we know of, we know of 2 battlefield experiences for him at the height of his power. Number 1 was Geonosis, which, with the help of the clones, was a decisive victory. But then again, he wasn't facing any other armed force users. And then, of course, we have Magneto, which was going to be a decisive victory for the Republic until Bakara and all of his men kind of ruined that one.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's fair. I think it's fair to assume, given that he was on the battlefield at the time of Order 66, given that he was on the battlefield in season 2 of the Clone Wars, I think it's fair to assume that he was out there quite a bit on the front lines. I think.
Absolutely, and I don't think that just because we've never seen him in a lightsaber duel doesn't mean he can't win one. But but it does give us a bit of a lack of things to work with. Whereas Eighth Brother, even though he's lost all the duels he's been in, he's still been in them. So we still know a bit more about how he operates.
Fair enough. And what about the Eighth Brother? What do we know about him? Because
very little
beyond the Twilight of the Apprentice. That's where my knowledge ends for the Eighth Brother.
I believe that's it. I believe that's all he's seen. He has that. Well, first of all, he's a Torellian Django jumper. Mundy's a Saurian. He's a Torellian Django jumper. And as we've seen from TCW, those things like that species is very, very agile, and that is a what was I gonna say? Yeah, that was a thing. He obviously wielded his double-bladed lightsaber. And obviously he does the spinning thing, the going round and round. He can also do that thing where he can activate it. He can have like spikes pull out of it and activate it like basically like a buzzsaw.
Yeah.
He also has some detonators that he can use. I'm not exactly sure about what his form would be. Let me look. Actually, I want to look at some footage of the Eighth Brother to see if I can see what his form could be. Let's see. Yeah, there's I'm watching him face down Ahsoka and Kanan, which obviously doesn't go well. Oh wait, actually let's do Ahsoka, Ezra, and Kanan are attacked by the Eighth Brother here. Let's do this. Yeah. Oh, he looks extremely. It's. Yeah, and he's firing he's firing the detonators almost instantly. Yeah, that seems pretty clear to me. That looks very Ataru based. Looks very Ataru based. Looks a Nine-Man based a little bit because of his.
He has the double bladed. So
because the double bladed, and also because he's integrating other things into his fighting style, not just the saber. Yeah, he's very energetic. He's obviously, and we don't know this. We don't know this, but come on, he obviously has the age advantage over Mundy because he's younger. Which means he's going to gain fatigue a little less than Mundy is, or at a slower rate than Mundy is. He has the speedy, he has the age, he has the speed, he has the agility over Monday. Monday, it all again, it comes down to Monday has that experience, has the refinement, has the battlefield experiences. Monday's won more, but not in lightsaber duels. Eighth Brother has lost more, but it's been in actual lightsaber duels. And it was against and he lost against Ahsoka Tano and Maul, who were two of the most powerful Force users of that era. So this one's also a tough one.
You think it's tough? All right, I'll let you go first then, because I don't think it's particularly tough.
I mean,
personally.
I don't think it's actually that tough, but I think I know which one I'm going with, and I think that this is interesting because I used to regard Ki-Adi-Mundi more highly than I do now. Because I remember one of the battles that was happening when I was tuning into a Nerd Academy podcast was they were doing Mundi versus Grandy. And Grandy, they were very convinced that Grandy was winning that one easily. And I was still a bit
I think
swayed.
Grand Inquisitor versus Monday is a completely different.
Yeah.
That's a completely different.
But asked me 3 years ago, and I said Ki-Adi-Mundi would have absolutely slaughtered the Grand Inquisitor. And now I no longer think that. But I think Mundi does take this one.
Yeah. Well, it's also a matchup question because Ki-Adi-Mundi, I think, more powerful, experienced Force user, no doubt, than the Grand Inquisitor. But the Grand Inquisitor, he's a trained hunter and killer of Jedi. That's his profession.
I think Mundi's definitely more experienced than
doesn't really have
Grandy.
any dueling experience.
Yeah,
we can.
I'm not sure. If, I'm not. I know that. I think that Mundi is more experienced than Grandy. I'm not sure if he's more powerful, like in the Force, than Grandy. I think that's debatable.
I think it's clear, or I think it's. I don't know. I would assume so, given that he's on the High Council. I don't know though. So
yeah.
so I assume. What's your verdict?
Yeah, my verdict is Mundi. Mundi wins. I want to set the arena. Let's go. Actually, I have a good one. Let's do the Dune Sea.
Okay.
Dune Sea, Tatooine.
So they're slipping in the sand.
Or no. What I was meant to say is the Junlin Wastes. The rocky areas.
Okay,
the Junlin Wastes.
There's a good bit of verticality. There's some topography, but ultimately it's pretty open space.
Open terrain. Yeah, and I think that what it will ultimately come down to is that Eighth's greatest advantages in the fights we saw him in Malachor, which even then he did terribly in, was the element of the shock and awe, the element of oh shit, there's an Inquisitor here, and oh, he has a double-bladed lightsaber, and oh, the hilt's bladed, and oh, he has these grenades. And I think that might put Mundi on the back pedal for a few minutes, but once he knows that that's that's what Eighth's gonna do, Eighth has nothing over him. So I think it's gonna come down to, I think Mundi is obviously, at least to me, more powerful in the Force than the Eighth Brother. And I think that I also think that Mundi's probably a bit better tactically, at least a bit better tactically than Eighth is, because Eighth, tries to do Eighth's eventual death in Rebels is because he tried to fly away on his Heleth saber and then it broke and he fell. It wasn't even because he was defeated in a duel. It was because he didn't realize that his lightsaber was too broken to fly. But yeah, ultimately, I think that Mundi takes this one. I think it's less close than Sabine and Rex would be. I think I think this might be one of the less close fights. Actually, I think yeah.
I agree. I don't think this would be particularly close at all. Personally, Ki-Adi-Mundi, he was on the High Council. You know, we have to assume that he was a pretty powerful Force user.
Well, like
To be sure, he had
yeah,
battlefield experience.
he had battlefield experience.
Yes.
I don't think you can definitively say just because he's on the High Council, he was X power. Like Coleman Trevor was on the High Council. Do I think Coleman Trevor would beat the Eighth Brother? In no universe.
Okay, well, I think based on what we've seen of Kiadimundi, it's a reasonable assumption that he was a powerful Force user,
Oh,
a level
absolutely.
or two at least, a level or two at least above the Eighth Brother. Apologize.
Yeah.
Furthermore, I think the Eighth Brother is, based on what we've seen of him, completely unproven. Couldn't even do any damage against Season 2 Ezra, let alone Kanan or Ahsoka. So, or Maul for that matter.
Yeah.
So I think it's not, you know, he might be more acrobatic, more athletic. He might have his grenades, but even though he is more trained for, you know, dueling combat, I imagine, than Kiadimundi, just given in the era that Kiadimundi came up in where there weren't really any threats to the Jedi. I think Kiadimundi's running away with this one, and it's not particularly close.
Yeah. But I will just say, like, and not to contradict you like that much or anything. I just like do want to point out that
Oh, you can contradict me. Eli, you can contradict me as much as you want. That's what this is all about.
But like Ahsoka and Maul were the two main people who defeated Eighth Brother. They weren't exactly like, it wasn't like he was getting slapped around by like an apprentice Jedi or like a barely knighted. Like these were really powerful people. Even Ezra and Kanan, for the amount of training that they have, were ludicrously powerful in the Force. And that's that. And I'm not saying it would be close. I'm saying I don't think it would be a landslide. I think it'd be definitive. I don't think Kiadimundi would win in 5 minutes. Maybe 15.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
but
fair
I'm
enough.
just yeah, go ahead with what's your next one? What do you want to do for your next one?
I'm gonna do one that I'm really not sure about, actually.
Right.
That I'm really not sure about that I think you would probably have more insight on. Ahsoka, specifically let's say season 2 Ahsoka.
Season 2 Ahsoka Tano.
Versus season 2 Ezra Bridger.
Ah, right. The apprentices of their time.
Now, the reason I think this is interesting is because, you know, wait, sorry, did I say season? No, I meant season 3 Ezra. Sorry,
season 3
2 Ahsoka,
Ezra.
Season 3 Ezra. So Ezra, once he has short hair, once he has his green lightsaber, once he takes the leap of steps into shadow, but not quite where he's at in season 4. Compare that to Ahsoka. You know, she's pretty fresh, she's pretty inexperienced, but she's still Ahsoka.
Yeah, like, it's
she's pretty raw though. So, you know.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I'm trying to think like what has Ahsoka done up to that point? Like
she's
like
faced off against Grievous and lived to tell the tale.
That was the big one for me.
That's for me one thing that like
that's the big one for me is the Grievous really thing. Is that obviously when we get to Flash season 5, she like almost defeats him, which is crazy enough. But like she fights Grievous and lives, which is not something that a fully trained Jedi Knight, like not a few episodes later that season, was able to do. So like,
yeah. Granted, it's not for very long. She just escapes.
No, but she's 14. She's 14, and this guy a decade older than her dies against Grievous after about 5 minutes of a lightsaber duel. Like, she's ludicrously powerful. Yeah, again, we see a lot of really powerful people with the Force in Star Wars. Ahsoka has a ludicrous amount of potential. I'm trying to think what else happens in the first season that we can the first 2 seasons that we can draw upon. Is Ahsoka involved with yeah, she is involved with the Holocron heist stuff, and she does get defeated by Cad Bane, but that's like trickery and not exactly like, it's not exactly a fair, like he pulls out one of his tricks at the end of at the last moment. So like I don't think that's exactly fair to analyze, and plus he's not a force user. She saves Luminara from Massage Ventress. She saves a like
That is true, yeah.
she saves a council level, not a council level, a Jedi Master, a fully trained Jedi Master from defeat by one of the most powerful force users at that time, Massage Ventress. And Cloak Darkness. Let's see what else. She defends the Lorman village from the Defoliator tank along with Anakin and Ayla. She indeed also does do that. Let's look at season 2. She freaking takes out that entire fucking ship filled with brainworms in that one arc. She defeats the super tank along with Barriss in Weapons Factory. Let's see what else she does. Well, there's Lightsaber Lost, which is that season. And although she does use her lightsaber, that like lose her lightsaber, but that's like the lengths that the way she goes about getting it back along with Master Sinube is very laudable. She's not on the Zillow Beast. She does take down Aura Singh, and we think she died, but she didn't. But she does take down Aura Singh, one of the most prolific bounty hunters of that time, along with Plo Koon. And so she's got a lot to work with. She's no slouch, absolutely. She's we know Ahsoka. She's a Form 4 Ataru, Ataru specialist to the max. Also 9-man specialist because of her dual blades, and even before she was dual blades, yeah, she was 9-man, but like before that, I guess you could also say she was a Shein specialist because of the backhanded grip, which is Form 5. Very good at blast deflection. Not great for lightsaber combat, but that's where Ataru came in.
Form 5 is good for lightsaber combat, I think. That's okay.
Gemso is. The Gemso variant. The Gemso variant is. Shein is mostly about blast deflection. But that's where the Ataru comes in.
My question though is just how much face to face, lightsabers out experience has she gotten by season 2? She has a lot of experience in general, but for the kind of fight that we're talking about, I don't think she has that much. I think Ezra is the big one. I think at this point, Ezra would have more dueling experience in this kind of scenario.
I would say probably.
I think Ahsoka would have overall more. Season 3 Ezra, I think their overall experience levels might be about the same. I think overall, I just think in the first, Ahsoka has about as much experience, maybe in the first 2 seasons as Ezra does in 3. I don't know if that's fair to say or not. I don't think.
Well, let's look at Ezra.
Experience in terms of combat, demonstrate your mettle, demonstrate your grit type of experience. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about Ezra now. Yeah.
Let's talk about Bridger.
I mean, at this point, he's taken his leap.
I'm trying to think what he's done. He didn't fare too great against Grandy at all through season 1. He survived, which is more than you could say for a lot of people with Grandy, but he he stands up to Grandy, and he does better than I assume most would in that situation. But it's Kanan who really does the hard work against Grandy. And then we have things like with 5 and 7. Those are the main 2 antagonists throughout season 2 with 5 and 7, and it seems very much like he's able to keep pace with them, but there's never a point where it feels like Ezra has as much of a as a dominance factor with 5 and 7.
He does work. He puts in work.
against 5 and 7, yeah, absolutely. But it's never like a like, oh, if not for their sly and cunning tactics, he could win at any point if he really wanted to, like it would be for somebody like Ahsoka. Like it feels like he probably has a bit of an advantage in terms of raw power against 5 and 7, but it's never like a dominant sense. It's never like a, oh,
Wait, you think season 2 Ezra had a power, like, overall power advantage over 5 and 7?
I'm not saying together, I'm saying like individually. If we're talking about individually, Ezra versus
But I mean,
5 or Ezra versus
individually,
7, because usually Kanan was there, but so I'm thinking about it like, yeah, against
yeah.
5 and against
I
5
think
and slash or 7, against 5 or 7, I think that Ezra has the ability to at least contend.
I disagree. I think if it came down to it, I think a distinction needs to be made between, we have Ezra, I think, has a higher ceiling on what his power in the Force could be at that time, what his potential is, what his overall, I think. And a lot of this just depends on the unspoken stuff that isn't really spelled out in Star Wars about how you view the Force. But I would say that,
well, first of all, let's establish
the Inquisitors.
arena.
Okay.
Um,
We do the same one, Jundland Wastes. That seems like a pretty fair.
let's do Forum.
Okay.
Yeah,
Florum.
Forum.
That's a nice spot for that. I like Florum.
Yeah. I mean, Ahsoka's been there a few times, but it's not like she has detailed analysis of the landscape or anything. But yeah, I think Forum's a good place just generally for it to be. But yeah, and then we have stuff like, well, first of all, what's Ezra's lightsaber form? I mean, I
don't
would
know.
think he's an Antaru
I don't know
specialist,
if it's. I don't know if it's been spelled out, but yeah, given what we've seen, I think.
Wikipedia identifies it as
obviously.
Gemso.
I mean, I think that makes
sense. Yeah,
sense.
Ataru.
I would say Ataru.
Yeah. Ataru and Gemso. Yeah.
Ataru and Gemso makes sense for me, given that, he was taught by Kanan, so there's the Form 3 influence in the Gemsos, given the situations that he was in, the emphasis on, deflecting blaster bolts, obviously, is something that would be very important. And you combine that with the acrobatics and the athleticism that he demonstrates. I think he has a similar style to Ahsoka, almost, I think.
Yeah.
If we really look at it.
I think that Ahsoka probably just because I think Ahsoka probably would be a little bit younger at this point, but I think that age would make a little bit of a difference, just in terms of, I think that Ezra's feet are probably going to be on the ground a decent amount more percentage-wise in time than Ahsoka's is going to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Ezra's acrobatic, but Ahsoka
is going to be literally flipping off the walls. Yeah.
Yeah.
But and I'm not saying that's going to provide advantage or disadvantage for either of them. I'm still thinking about that. But yeah, I think Ezra's feet are going to be firmly planted on the ground a little bit more than Ahsoka's are. Yeah, this one's a tough one, but but we're thinking like, what are we thinking? Are we thinking like? I feel like season 3. I feel like season 3 Ezra is a little weird because we also have those force powers that he was using at the beginning of season 3. I feel like we should do end of season 2 because, like,
I think maybe end of season 3. Maybe end of season 3, because not much changes after he drops. After he drops the emo dark side act, there's not much.
Yeah,
changes between the beginning and the end. But he
I was gonna say like the holocron stuff
and abilities, clearly.
Yeah. See, then I would say, end of season 3.
I think I've come to a conclusion.
Well, I need to figure out what happens in season 3. Well, he does defeat the Super Commandos. In Super Commandos, he defeats the battle droids, which Ahsoka could have done also. he contends with Sabine, so he has wielded the lightsaber against another. Yeah, I think it's pretty clear for me too. Go ahead though.
I'm gonna go with Ezra. I think Ezra would take this one. I think if we just look at where they are in their respective developments at this time, I think it would be close because I think when it comes down to it, I think Ezra, season 3 at this point, end of season 3, I think he's farther along. He is farther along in his training and development than Ahsoka in season 2. I think even though Ahsoka probably got from the Jedi Temple a greater back catalog of high quality and formal training, actually, almost certainly a much larger backlog of high quality and formal training. I think by season 3, Ezra had gotten more real, more real kind of situation experience, a bit more dueling experience as well. And I think, given that at this point their styles are pretty similar, they're both still pretty raw and inexperienced. I think I would have to go with Ezra. I think his advantage and experience just makes that bit of a difference. But it could go either way, to be honest. But I would
In
pick
this
Ezra.
situation, I would also pick Ezra, though I will say I think if you shift either of their seasons by just one, I think everything
Oh, that would
changes.
completely change the calculus because Ahsoka
Well,
at the end of season 3 is night and day from Ahsoka at the end of season 2.
Because I think
Same
if
with
you would
Ezra.
shift it, I think if you would shift it to Ahsoka season 3, then she wins. I think if
Yeah,
you
I
shift,
think
I think if you
Ahsoka
keep
versus Ezra
Ahsoka at
season 3,
2,
yeah.
I think if you keep Ahsoka season 2 and then shift Ezra back to 2, I think Ahsoka also wins by
Agreed.
that metric.
Agreed.
But I think if we're doing 2 versus 3, I think Ezra at that point has more experience and is a bit more confident in himself. But yeah, 2 versus 3. I think that Ezra probably ekes it out. Again, could go either way, really. It would be very close, but if they're both the same season of their show, I'd usually bet on Ahsoka. But given that Ezra is in a later season of his development than Ahsoka is, then I go with Ezra just because of how both of them get more confident as they go along and gain more skills and more adaptability as they go along.
Yeah. Agreed.
Um
Agreed.
yeah. All right. Let's see. All right, let's do one final one, and I'm actually going to steal one of yours. I'm going to do one of yours because I like this one a little bit better than some of mine, even though mine are interesting.
Okay.
But let's do this one. Let's do TCW Dooku versus Rebels Maul for the last one.
Oh, Clone Wars Dooku Rebels Maul.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're thinking
Okay.
like S6 Dooku because we don't see Dooku in 7. So like S6 Dooku versus like time of versus like twin sons Maul, basically is what we're saying.
Yeah, I think so. I think
Yeah. Well, first we'll get to both of their. Dooku is wildly experienced, one of the best lightsaber duelists of his time. I would say probably top 3, along with Mace Windu and Obi-Wan Kenobi in terms of just raw lightsaber skill. Makashi specialist, but he is so good at Makashi. He's so he was the preeminent master of that form at the time. So good that I think he compensated effectively for a lot of Makashi's perceived weaknesses as a form. Immensely powerful in the Force, like immensely powerful in the Force.
I think if you just look at Revenge of the Sith, for example, you don't really get the full measure of Dooku. If you look at the Clone Wars, especially like later seasons of the Clone Wars, I'm thinking especially about that one duel where he's the couple of the duels where he's going up against Anakin in season 6. I think him versus, I can't remember which arc it is, but him versus Anakin and Obi-Wan together, on the ship, like You know what I'm talking about, right?
I don't know which one you're like. That could literally be like 5 different arcs.
Look, he's a bad motherfucker, man. I used to
He is
underrate
a
Dooku a little bit. He's
oh
a
yeah.
bad motherfucker,
He
man.
is he is
Pardon
a
my French. I had
he
to
is
say it.
absolutely a bad motherfucker. He is yeah, incredibly skilled with Force lightning, which, despite being trained as a Jedi his whole entire goddamn life, he pulls out that shit all the time during clones and AOTC and TCW like it's nothing. Like, he wasn't trained in that. He had to train himself. Like, Sidious and him had to build that up from scratch because, for the first 70 years of his life, he was a Jedi. But
Although I think the Jedi skills, if someone chooses to go to the dark side, I think the Jedi skill set translates pretty smoothly towards someone
oh,
choosing to
absolutely.
use
And
it
I'm
for
not
less
saying
than
that
noble purposes.
I'm not saying that he never had the power when he was a Jedi to use Force lightning. I'm just saying that activating a dark side skill set part of your mind is different when you've been on the light side all your life.
Okay, that's
And
fair. That
and
is
and
fair.
and like Anakin, for example. Anakin, when Anakin turns, like he's really able to find that rage within himself to do things like force choking and
Oh, it was always
like
there.
throw his yeah, but Dooku doesn't even get that pissed off at Yoda, and he just throws some force lightning from his hand like it's nothing. And yeah, Yoda catches it, but he's Yoda. Um yeah, he's incredibly skilled at lightsaber combat. Yeah, Yoda was his only superior in lightsaber in a duel in the Order, and Mace Windu was his only equal. Um, yeah, and yeah, extremely skilled in both lightning and telekinetic powers. Just a powerhouse of a fighter. He is, like, by the time he dies, he's like 80. I forget exactly how old he is, but he is getting up there in age. There's no denying that. I think he's actually older than Sidious, which makes that dynamic a little weirder when you think about it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he is. He is. I remember that. Yeah, that's true. That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, he's 83 by the time he dies, but the
It
Force
doesn't
can
stop him though,
compensate.
man.
The Force can
It doesn't
compensate
stop
that for
him.
that quite a bit. But yeah, he's ludicrously powerful. You know how much of a fan I am of his as a character, and I also think he's just an incredibly powerful fighter as well.
Oh yeah, just one more testament to Dooku in the Clone Wars. He's asleep. He gets ambushed by three invisible lightsaber wielding Night Sisters
Struck by a
who
fucking
hit
poison
who
dart, fucking by
who
a,
yeah,
like a,
they hit him with a poison dart, and it's a 3-on-1, and they're invisible, and he
and one of them
still
is Ventress,
humiliates them,
and one
and
of
one of
them
them
is
is Ventress.
Ventress.
Granted, I don't, but he humiliates them, like he blasts
He
them out the
makes
window with Sith
fools out
lightning.
of them. He
Like,
is like it's nothing.
I think that to me might actually be the most impressive Dooku moment. I
Yeah.
think that might be it.
I will
Just thinking
also
about
just
it,
say
like,
this too.
I mean, come on.
I will also just say this too, and a lot of people will, like, I know if Jared were listening to this right now, he would absolutely scream at me because of how wrong he thinks I am. But it is true that Anakin beat him in Revenge of the Sith. But I actually think about that as the exception to the rule, not the rule.
Yeah, I agree. I
Like,
think Anakin.
in most other fights, look at him fighting against Anakin and Obi-Wan in the vast majority of other parts of TCW. He is
Yeah, it was
either
only after
winning
Anakin had.
or like really putting up a good fight and content. Like, there's no point on which, like, in any TCW fights, maybe the one on Naboo in season 4, maybe, but even that's like circumstantial and because of a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, I think that
You tell me
it's
that
only after
Anakin
Anakin,
really had a
fully.
really good shot against Dooku?
It's only after Anakin, taps into his rage into the dark side that he's able to take down Dooku.
Yeah, and that's what happens in season 4 of TCW too. He's still so mad that the council lied to him about Obi-Wan, and blah blah blah, and that's how he almost defeats Dooku then, and he doesn't even do it. He doesn't even defeat Dooku then. Want to go to Maul now?
Yeah, so Maul's an interesting case in this one because
Yeah.
Maul's an interesting character. He's one of the only characters where you get three very, very different, distinct
Oh yeah.
versions
TPM
of Maul,
Maul,
widely
TPM
separated.
Maul, TCW Maul, and SWR Maul are three different characters. Like they just are. And when we have to evaluate, yeah.
I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to call you out. Abbreviating Rebels to SWR is it's the most unnecessary thing I've ever heard. I'm sorry. You can cut that out if you want. I just thought it was funny.
That's
I know
whatever.
you were going for the triple. You were going for the triple abbreviation.
Triple initial, yeah. Sorry, I don't really care. I
No, don't worry
like
about
it
it.
wasn't
Don't worry
like
about it. It doesn't matter. I don't care.
it
I
wasn't
think it's
something
funny.
about like that I was like really hung up upon. I'm just saying like those three characters are completely
Yeah,
completely different
they're
characters.
different.
And
So at this point,
yeah, but at this point,
he
I'm trying
goes
to
to
think.
town on the Inquisitors. He pretty much has his way with them for starters.
Yeah,
So as a baseline, that's pretty high.
Yeah, I will say that he is decisively better than fifth, than seventh, than eighth. Two of which he directly kills, and the other one of which he indirectly kills.
Yeah.
Though I will say that, and again, not to discount Maul's strength because he's very strong on the Force, but Ahsoka, Kanan, and Ezra were also there fighting with him.
They were there,
and what he was able to do so effectively was he was able to split them up apart from each other, because it was very much like oh, isolate fifth from the rest of the group, stabbity stab, isolate seven from the rest of the group, stabbity stab, and then eighth kind of took care of himself. But no, but he's incredibly powerful. He gets away with this stuff of blinding Kanan, which neither Ahsoka or Kanan really is suspected. And that took a lot of cunning strategy. And he's able to contend with Kanan and Ezra throughout season 3. And then of course we get to the end of season 3. And I think all of our entire perceptions of his characters changed with literally 3 flashes of lightsabers.
Oh yeah.
1, 2, stab.
I don't really know how that moment fits into all this, to be honest. It's difficult because it's such a that's not really a fight. It's something else.
Oh, it's not a fight.
In the story,
yeah.
Like I almost feel like that shouldn't really be considered for this because it's so.
I feel like I feel like we have to. I'm not saying that we have to weight it, but like I feel like we still have to consider it. I feel like because that is, at least for me, about Maul's ceiling. That even
I don't know. I think that's kind
old,
of
decrepit Obi-Wan at that point, who is like not to dog on Obi-Wan too much, but I'm just saying this is not Kenobi Obi-Wan. This is not the same Obi-Wan who defeated Vader in Part 6. This is him about 5-6 years later. He looks almost exactly like the Ben we know from New Hope, who he obviously trains with the Force. I assume now after what happens in Kenobi, but still he is living as a hermit on a desert planet where lightsabers aren't really seen, other than his, of course. And he defeats Maul in 3 strikes.
But at the same point, I think if we look at it, I think Maul defeats himself as much as Obi-Wan defeats him in that fight, to be honest, because he's trying to do the same move that he did to Qui-Gon all those years ago, clearly. Yeah. And I think that was a moment for the story and a personal moment, an emotional moment for those two characters. I think if it was actually if he hadn't tried to do that move for whatever reason, the hilt slam, double slam into the chest. If he hadn't tried to do that move, I think he could have won the duel had he played it like a reasonable person. But he didn't, so we'll never know.
Yeah.
But with that in mind, I think
Well,
that moment
well, I was gonna
is
say
more
what.
than a duel.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like, what's his Because I'd say Julia probably for Maul, Berserker Julia, Man quite a bit because of the because of the double blade. Julia Man. I think that's maybe because of the extra flips and spin, a little bit of a Taru in there, but nothing like we have very two different philosophies on lightsabers because Maul uses it as like this hammer basically. Maul uses it as a hammer even when he has a double blade lightsaber, and Dooku
Yeah.
uses it as the sword like that it is.
Yeah. I mean, okay, we go back to the fact that it's up against Dooku. Maul
Yeah.
at this point, he was clearly, it's hard to compare Maul to his, I think Maul in his prime might be during the Clone Wars at some point. He was clearly very powerful in the Force.
I'm not sure if his prime
he
is
was
in
very
TCW or
powerful,
Rebels, but yeah.
yeah. Either way, though, I don't think he's a match for Dooku, and
No, I don't either.
it could be close, but it's not very close because we know we talked a lot about Dooku. We know what he's capable of. I think in terms of pure dueling prowess, Dooku takes the cake.
Yeah, I think that for me, this fight is gonna be basically Dooku versus Savage in TCW, but if Savage had twice the power, skill, and experience.
Yeah, I think Maul is
Gonna be
not to be
harder
trifled
for
with at this point.
gonna be harder for Dooku, but I think ultimately the same things generally that brings Savage down against people like Dooku would bring Maul down against Dooku because he's just that much of a berserker, and you can't be a berserker against Dooku unless you have that much power, which Maul does not.
Yeah, I think Maul, his style, where he is in the Clone Wars, or in at least given what we see, he loves these big aggressive sweeping motions,
Yeah.
these leaps and these big flourishes, really taking advantage of the saber staff, taking up space, putting his opponents off balance. That might work against someone with very formal training, but someone much, much a bit lesser than Dooku, or quite a bit lesser than Dooku. But
And one of
that's
the most
not going to work
interesting things
against
about
Dooku because he's Dooku.
one of the
And we
interesting
know
things
what
about
he's
Dooku
capable
that
of.
I
We
think
know how he goes.
that is interesting, and that I think he does actually quite much better than both Maul and Vader, though I think Vader does it well too. But I think Maul's just particularly bad at this. Is that he's a dark side force user, and yeah, he can use his rage, but he is not like he doesn't have his rage completely possess him the way Maul does. Like, sometimes
Oh,
with
not even
Maul you don't
close. Not even close.
sometimes with Maul you don't know whether you're fighting a person or an animal. With Dooku you're fighting a person, a very evil person, but a person nonetheless. And think of all of the times that Dooku has gotten visibly shaken in fights. You could probably count them on one hand.
I think just Anakin a couple times late in the Clone
Yeah.
Wars and obviously in Revenge of the Sith, and that's it. And I think for the record, I don't think
Yoda. I'd say Yoda
this
and
doesn't.
AOTC.
Yeah, maybe
But
I don't think this particularly changes the balance much. But for the record, I think at the time of by the time Rebels rolls around, I think Maul's fighting style isn't as much about pure, you know, it's not much about that like pure lose your mind ferocity. I think he becomes a little different at that point. But still, I think Dooku's taking this
I
one.
don't think I don't think he's maybe as
I
primal
can't
as he was in TCW, but here's the thing: he's more primal than Dooku will ever stand any chance of being in Rebels.
Yeah.
And
still though, I don't. Sorry, go ahead.
And I think that Dooku is going to see Maul, and he's going to like watch him literally like fucking charge up to him, and he's just gonna take it from there. I think that Maul is absolutely somebody who, you know, we've seen his weakness against lightning before. Look at Sidious. I think lightning is
That was
gonna
also
do
once he was already bested.
that's true, but still. But yeah, I think that lightning's gonna do it. I think that Dooku's obvious lightsaber prowess, and I think a bit more power in the Force as well. I think just very simply, Maul is outclassed.
Yeah, I think a lot of these fights are close and could go, and like I could see either side winning, even though I think one has a better case, and even though I think pretty highly of Maul's skills and abilities, but I genuinely don't see him winning this one.
Yeah,
I
don't
just
see. I think Maul
I don't
could
see a
like
scenario
technically
in
win
which he
it.
wins.
Yeah, I don't think he realistically wins this one. I don't think there's any realistic scenario where he wins this. I just don't.
Yeah, I think it's harder to imagine him winning this than any of the losers, than any of the other ones that we've declared losing. Like I think Sabine's more likely to beat Rex
Oh, absolutely.
than
Yeah.
Maul is to beat Dooku. Who else did we
Kiadi
say? I
in
think the eighth
eighth.
brother. Maybe
I'm not
Kiadi in
sure.
eighth, but even that one, yeah, I just think
that
and
one's
then not
that one I'm not
necessarily that
exactly
it's
sure about.
yeah. And I don't necessarily think that it's not close, because I do think this would be reasonably close, or at least
I don't think
somewhat
this would be a
close.
landslide, but I think this would be definitive in Dooku's favor.
This wouldn't be a landslide. It would be definitive in Dooku's favor, but as it could be as close as can be, and I just don't see an area in which Maul has some kind of advantage that he could really, because Dooku's just that good of a duelist.
Yeah.
And he's got the Force prowess to back it up.
Yeah. The only thing that Maul has
I just don't see it for Maul.
For the advantage of Dooku is physicality. He's about 30 years younger than Dooku is, and he's a Brock and half robot. But even that, like it's like Dooku is that much better with the Force and that much more connected with the Force than Maul, that I don't seem that matter a whole lot.
Yeah, if Dooku can contain someone like Anakin, if he can contain someone like Savage, I think he can contain Maul as well.
Yeah.
Even though I think Maul has more physicality than Anakin, but I still think he has more physicality but less overall prowess than Anakin. Less like raw Force power maybe than Anakin, but
yeah.
It's
also,
Dooku. I don't need to explain it anymore. It's clearly Dooku.
Also, there's one other piece of evidence I'm going to use in my favor of Dooku. I want you to watch and listen very closely, Jacob. Fuck Darth Maul. Oh, my homies hate Darth Maul.
I knew you were gonna do it. I knew there was a weird lack of Darth Maul hatred coming from you this whole time, Eli. I knew you were waiting for something.
But like seriously, even beyond the fact that I don't like Darth Maul as a character, I still like, even if that wasn't true, I still think that Dooku's gonna win.
Fair enough.
It just happens to be a character that I love versus a character I very much do not like. But yeah. Yeah, fuck Darth Maul. All my homies hate Darth Maul. But yeah, I think that's gonna. I think with the ending of that one, I think we should end it here.
Yeah, I think we should. I think that'll be it.
That's gonna be it for this episode of Star Wars in a Galaxy. Hope you enjoy this different type of episode. Next week we are going to be we're gonna be going back to some deleted scenes for the next 2 seasons of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, seasons 3 and 4. We're very excited to be going back to that. In the meantime, you can follow us on Twitter at in a Galaxy Pod, Instagram at Star Wars in a Galaxy. Follow my personal Twitter account at OchiFan327. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast, we will be there. If we're not, email us, swinagalaxy@gmail.com. You can also email us any trivia or fun facts or whatever questions you want to ask us. We do really appreciate hearing from listeners. Let's see what else is going on. You can follow Epic Confrontations, our spin-off show at In a Galaxy Trivia on Twitter and on the Star Wars In a Galaxy YouTube channel. As you know, we did the rematch a few weeks ago. When we post this, it will have been a few weeks ago. Thanks for all the support on that. We're looking forward. I think Ryan's versus Cable is going to be towards the end of May because of scheduling stuff, but it's still be coming. And either way, I think all there's left to say is may the Force be with you.
Always.
Always.